one day I think I called the woman who was like our person, and like the lines were disconnected. She reaches out to me like a week later, or my parents or somebody, and she's like, "Listen, this is crazy, but like this guy that started this record company was a fraud. He took people's money, not ours, but was running some scheme."
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I'm your host, Mike Doyle. Before we begin, go check out Ben Wyman from Dillinger Escape Plan's online course, In the Business of Uncompromising Art, which is live now. There are a million music business courses out there, but we're pretty confident none of them advise you to blow fire in a fan's face and still get paid for it. But Ben argues that's part of what made his legendary mathcore band so successful for so long. Authenticity, risk-taking, an obsessive focus on fans, and an unwavering DIY ethos drawn from his heroes in punk. He'll elucidate how to attract a passionate fan base, deliver honest art, and design creative strategies for making money in an industry plagued by old, tired models. There's a link in the bio to check it out. Dropzone were a punk band from New Jersey who never made it out of high school before they broke up. There's a lot of people out there. I'd say the majority of people who are listening to this podcast have no fucking idea who this band is, except if you were from New Jersey and played with these guys back in the late 90s. This is why I love this interview, because it's one of those where, these guys, like I said, they didn't even make it out of high school when they broke up. But my old band, when we were our first iteration called Congress of Cow, and then we were called Lanemeyer, we played a show with these guys, which we talk about in the interview. And they were just these little dudes that came up to us after we played and were like, "Oh my God, that was so great." And we just became like cool with them. And I thought it would be awesome just reconnect with Chris so many years later and just, I don't know, reminisce about that time and just have a fun conversation. So I got Mr. Murphy on the Skype, and this is what we chat about. Going to law school with Anthony from Armor for Sleep, calling Gabe Saporta, meeting them for the first time, the Quinn EP, winning a talent show, Gary Bender, boxing, them possibly being on a Fat Wreck comp, what would be considered emo, and a ton more. If you need a commercial real estate lawyer, check out his firm Murphy, Schiller & Wilkes, and the link is in the show notes. So if you're in Jersey, support local, or I'm sure they take clients that are outside New Jersey, I think. I don't know, but, go to their website. This week's episode is sponsored by Mint 400 Records. Albany, New York-based indie rock band E.R.I.E. releases their sophomore album Suburban Mayhem on April 7th via Mint 400 Records. Citing diverse influences such as Blink-182, Tom Petty, and the Menzingers, E.R.I.E. has traded in the internalized existential struggle of debut, don't want to live, don't want to die, to take on the myriad forces that permeate a modern existence. That was a lot right there. Single Bad Man's World presents a tongue-in-cheek evaluation of fitting into a stereotypical idea of manhood without turning into a chauvinistic asshole. In addition to their album release show in Albany on April 7th, E.R.I.E. has upcoming shows in Metro New York, Connecticut, Philadelphia, and more. For more information, visit their website, a band called E.R.I.E.com. Here's a clip of their song Bad Man's World. Thank you, Mint 400 Records, for always supporting the podcast. If you also want to support the podcast, just give me an email at thiswasthescene@gmail.com, and I can let you know about pricing and shit like that. That's all I got to say, so feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. Dude, I don't even know the last time I talked to you. Probably Congress of Cow days, maybe?
Dude, like literally 20 years ago. No, I mean, you guys were doing Lanemeyer stuff. We opened up for you one time when you came out and did we were doing Lanemeyer, and what song did you guys open with, man? I forget, but it was so fucking great, man. It was out of VFW, like all the shows. It was just cool as shit. And Chris Barker ended up being like a dude that lived in Sparta and like got married to like a girl I know and had kids and shit.
Wait, you know Jamie Fusco?
Yeah.
Really?
We all grew up together. I mean, she grew up in Sparta, I think.
Do you know?
Yeah, of course.
She's my ex-wife.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, dude. I'm sure you don't know my ex-wife. She's out in Long Island, but yeah. Dude, that's crazy, man. And yeah, like I have like a funny story about like, I think Chris knows this. Like, what was that, dude? What was the song like? Winter mornings, I don't have the strength to say goodbye. What song is that?
Another Lonely Winter?
Yeah, fucking great song. Anyway, I used to play that to chicks on my guitar. And like I I think I played it for Jamie one time. She's like, "That's my boyfriend's song." I was like, "Oh God."
Wait, you played it for Jamie, like not
like
knowing
like
she
yeah, I
was
was like
dating
with like
someone?
some girls or something, and I was like, trying to be cool.
Oh my God.
Oh my God! But
Wait, I just have to ask. So you grew up with Jamie and in the same grade?
I think so. Probably. Like, how old is?
Oh man, I think she's God, I haven't talked to her in like 9 years.
What are you? How old are you?
I'm 43, so I
Yeah, and
think I
I'm
was
38. So she's probably 38, right?
yeah, oh wow. Yeah, I guess so, 'cause yeah, that's right. Holy shit.
Yeah, because I probably haven't seen you, honestly, dude, in like 22 years. Like, to think about it, like, I was probably 16 the last time we were into each other. Because we played, like, you guys were doing Congress of Cow, and then was there an interim step or was it right to Lanemeyer?
From Congress of Cow?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was basically we kicked Jeff out. Actually, I just interviewed Jeff last year and talked about his. I forgot how it went down, and he was like, "Yeah, you were like all mad at me and like never didn't talk to me," and I was like, "I do not remember any of this shit."
I know, right?
I'm like, wow. I'm like, I usually remember a lot of things, but I don't remember that. But yeah, so we kicked him out, and then we got two new people, and they were like, we don't want to be called Congress of Cow, even though we're playing Congress of Cow songs. Let's change the names. It was basically just like this kind
That's
of
how it happened. They
yeah, this
changed the
gradual
plan.
thing. Yeah.
What was let me look up something really quick. I have another funny story about fucking, what's that band that my friend fucking Anthony was in? Let me see. Like it's emo Jersey band, like Armor for Sleep. I don't know if you know those guys.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, so they like did pretty well for themselves. But I didn't know them. But I'm in law school and I'm sitting next to this dude, and we're like just shooting the shit. His name's Anthony. Just a cool fucking kid. And we're in law school. We're in the same class. And we're next to each other. And we're like talking about music. And he's like such a humble dude. And I'm like not. So I'm like bragging about fucking like, yeah, not bragging, but just like talking about, yeah, I was in a band. We did our thing and blah blah blah. And he's like, I played music too. And I was like, oh cool. Like, what was your band? And he's like, Armor for Sleep. Jesus. Like they did well and they did like a reunion tour. It was like so much fun, man.
Yeah, they just played recently. They had announced a reunion tour like 2020, and then obviously that didn't work. And I think it was the last year. And the lineup for Furnace Fest just came out. Have you ever heard of Furnace Fest?
No, where's that?
It's in Birmingham, Alabama,
Okay.
and it's just huge band like Turnstile's playing, but Armor for Sleep they're on the bill. Yeah, so I think me and my buddy Tom might take a ride, or I
That's
might
pretty cool.
go down to that. Yeah.
Yeah, man, there was some good music, man, that came out of Jersey, and I'm just like looking here. Because I just looked this up. Like, My Chemical Romance wasn't in our world, were they?
Well, yeah, they were from Jersey. Someone told me that Gerard used to work at the Hot Topic at Willowbrook Mall.
Really?
Yeah.
I was a Rockaway Mall guy, but
Yeah, same.
but like it was like Saves the Day. Was that before us or after us or when was that?
That was the same time as
Lanemeyer. Like I was out by then. But you guys were doing like they did pretty well for themselves. They had some great albums.
yeah, Saves the Day is pretty good. I talked to Brian, their drummer, and he was wild to talk to. He was super cool.
Yeah, I'm sure they have some fun stories because that was such a weird fucking like the music was so good and it had like these super dark lyrics that were so amazing. How about like Gabe from Midtown? Do you talk to him still?
We just played the Midtown show in Starland in December.
Oh, that's cool. Are you so? What's your band now? Is it still Lanemeyer?
Well, I mean, they asked us to play.
So Chris did it and everything. It was like a
Yeah,
reunion?
yeah, it was me, Chris, Casey. I don't think you ever met Casey.
No, probably not. Oh yeah, I did. No, I did.
And then Sean. Sean's always been the drummer.
Oh, that's sick. Was it a cool scene?
It was dope. I mean, they sold the place out back in April of last year. So by the time the show came around, it was December, or I think it was April, May. And I reconnected with Rob because of this podcast because I had interviewed Heath, and then Rob heard it and then contacted me, and then he put out our first EP on vinyl, and we did a reunion show in 2018. So we reconnected. So he like hit me up back in September, and he was just like, "Yo," or August. He's like, "Do you guys want to open for us at Starland?" I was like, yeah. What the fuck?"
That's sick.
Yeah. So
That's sick.
I saw Gabe, and it was so funny because I haven't seen him in so long. So they played, and it was awesome. The show was so fucking good, and they kicked ass. And I'm at the merch table, and he comes out, and he's like, it looked like he was like wasted,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
I didn't even know he drank, but he came out and he's like talking to people, and he's really cool. And this one girl, I felt so bad for him. This one girl like cornered him and was just talking his fucking ear off about her like trauma and all of this shit. And he's just like, yeah, cool. And he was so good to her and like talking where I was just like, if that was me, I'd be like, bitch, get the fuck out of my face.
He was always a nice dude, man. He was a nice dude.
He's like this different status.
Didn't he go off and like wasn't he doing like some like EDM kind of shit? Like
Yeah, he did Starship.
oh right.
No, not Starship Troopers. My God, Cobra Starship.
So yeah, they had done that, dude. The crazy fucking thing about it is like, and I think about this sometimes, is like now, especially like technology, I think is like completely ruining the world. But in some ways, it's like a good thing, right? Because we're so connected. You're able to connect with me now. That God knows what that would look like if there wasn't, Instagram or Facebook or whatever we connected on. And it's like,
Yeah,
dude, when we were like playing shows and shit, because you got to remember, you guys are like, so you're how old?
43.
43. So I'm 5 years younger than you, which is nothing now, right? Because 5 years and when you're 38 and 43 is like, like we're just both old. But like when we were younger, you guys were like 18 and I was like 13. But like the crazy thing about it is like I used to call like everyone's parents' house. Gabe had like a house line.
Wait, you called his house?
Yeah, like when we would talk about stuff, because I was trying to book our band for some shows, and he was in Humble Beginnings. I got that right? He was in Humble
Yeah.
Beginnings, and I was like wanted to get on as like an opener, and like so I'd call Gabe's house and be like, "Hey, is Gabe there?" and then we talk about wanting to play. Just crazy to think that that's the way everyone communicated back then.
Yeah, do you know you guys are on the NJPP archives?
I know somebody sent me that recently. Yeah, it's like, dude, it's literally another world ago, but it was like so developed. Like for me, I said before, I'm a lawyer. My brother and I, who was the drummer of my band, so Kellen and I always did stuff together, right? So I was a singer and the guitar player and wrote songs, and Kellen was the drummer, and Pat Merrick was the bass player, and then Steve Arugio was the guitar player. So Kellen and I always did stuff together, and like all the stuff that I learned being in a band literally guides my life today. Like the stuff, like dude, we were like calling everybody, sending out flyers, renting out VFW halls to put on our own shows. It's such a cool part of our life.
I'll talk to people and they'll talk about where they are now, and if you just connect the dots to where they were when they were like 13 or 17, it's like all the stuff they were doing then, they're doing it like on a grander scale now in life. Or like, someone might be like, oh, I love toys back in the day. Now they're like a toy company or some shit,
Yeah, right. Yeah, because if you're lucky, you get to do that stuff and get to like do what you love for a living. It's pretty cool. I mean, the band stuff is like when I saw like Anthony from Armor for Sleep and they played that reunion show, and like I was just like, man, that was so cool. We did that, and like it would be even cooler if we could still do it now, but we're not. I'm not like writing songs anymore and doing that. But man, it was a good scene, and that music was good, man. I mean, like I still listen to Lane-Meyer record. Like I still listen to that. Like I have the CD in my car. I know it's weird.
That's awesome.
I have the CD in my car, and people are like, "You still have a CD player?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's my first question when I bought my Beamer. I was like, "Does it have a CD player?" Like, yeah. Like, why? I was like, I just need to know. There's just something about like, to me, like a CD, like obviously Spotify and stuff has made the world so easy and convenient. To me, there's something about listening to a record from start to finish, looking at a CD case and like having the insert. Maybe I'm just like a dinosaur, but I think that's cool.
Yeah, but it sounds so much better. I mean, I have a CD player.
It does sound better.
Yeah, I have a CD player in my Jeep, and I was like, oh shit, I got my old booklet of CDs that my mom had in her house. Like she was in store. I forget. Like she had them because I was like traveling, and I was like, here, hold on to this stuff for me, and I'll get it one day. I was like, oh my God, I can listen to these old CDs. And you put it in, and it's just so much fuller. It's just this loud shit.
It's fuller too. Yeah, especially if you got like a decent stereo system in your car, like that, it's good. Like I listened to the Saves the Day. What was that, like not the record they did like Through Being Cool. It was after Through Being Cool.
Stay What You Are.
Yeah, exactly. And like that first song comes on, you're like, wow, this is cool as shit, man.
Do you still like, I mean, you said listen to the Lane-Meyer shit. Like, are you still listening to those bands, or have you do you find like newer music?
No, listen, I like everything. So I'm like, and I've kind of always been that way. I'm not like huge into rap, but I'll listen to some like old school like Tupac and stuff I like. But the punk stuff, like I still listen to, like the pop punk or whatever we call it. Like I do listen to that stuff. Midtown, had a great record that I still listen to. I listen to kind of everything. I love that stuff. I mean, it's the stuff I grew up on,
Well, do you find like because you're doing like lawyer stuff now that's kind of your escape a little bit of just this difference in the whole lawyer world and the hustle?
Oh, dude, 100%. Dude, but listen, everybody will tell you this about me. Like, I'm literally either in a suit Or I'm in like Converse All Stars and like tight jeans. I look like a 15-year-old. Like, like I'm in like a torn up like Rolling Stones t-shirt that I had when I was literally 18 years old. I definitely have that as an escape. I think people will see me out. They won't even like people I do business with, and they'll be like, "Wait, who is this guy?"
Do you like doing law?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so my brother and I started a firm. We do all real estate and development stuff. We built up a firm. It's kind of like building a band, and like we've had a lot of fun. I like the stuff we do. We work on pretty cool development projects and stuff that's pretty impactful. So I don't know if I would like being a lawyer if I was just sitting in a big corporate office churning papers all day, but like building a business and doing what we're doing is has been really rewarding and fun. So
I've talked to a couple people where they'll still do like bands with their siblings or businesses and stuff. Like I find that to be cool that you guys didn't let business fuck with you.
yeah, no, but I think we're probably the exception to the rule. I think it's tough to do business with family. We've always, you remember my brother, and we're so different. I'm like bigger than life and this big personality, and Callum's like the most humble person you ever met in your life, and it's just like it's a good kind of mix. It's a good way to be different. I mean, but Callum was actually at my house last night. We finished a dinner, and he was bottle or two of wine deep, and he picked up a guitar and started ripping away, and I was like, dude, guitar is so fucking out of tune. He's like, I think it sounds good. I'm like, dude, stop.
Well, it's not like you on your Instagram. I'm gonna eventually hone this in and go back in time to how you got into the whole scene and stuff. But I saw on your Instagram, I think you're posting videos of just still playing some music, right?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's funny. I hadn't picked up my guitar in a long time and recently have. And I just kind of keep it out in my house. So I'll just like pick it up and play some stuff. I think we had talked briefly before about Gaslight Anthem and like Brian Fallon and like, was there a iteration of Laymeyer where he was part of that or something?
Yeah, he replaced Chris for about a year.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like, first of all, I think he's a great songwriter and he's, very talented, but I like playing his stuff. It's like very much in my key, and like it's fine, obviously not as good as Brian, but I think it sounds all right.
So I have to ask you, just because like I've been living since we talked about like my ex, I've been living like the single life for 9 years, right? And I'm in my 40s. Obviously, this has nothing to do with punk rock, but I just wanted to ask you anyway. So in your Instagram, it's like just a ton of photos of your kid, who is
Yeah.
fucking adorable.
Thanks, brother.
I like in my 40s, I'm like, man, I don't even have a serious relationship. I had like kind of one this summer, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm at the age where I want to have kids anymore. Like, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on
So
that whole
I
thing?
think my thoughts on this, like, obviously didn't stay married, so maybe not wasn't cut out for that at that time or whatever. But the kid is like, I tell people, like, you think you love your girlfriend, you think you love your wife, have a kid, and then you'll realize like what love is. Like, you love your kid. Like, it's just a different like thing. And my Instagram is like kind of like it's a private account. Obviously we're friends, so you're on it, but like it's not like a public thing. It's not like it's more for me to kind of just like document my. It's like a photo album, and like it's really a cool thing, man. Like he's like, the other day I'm like playing a song, and like he's like chiming in and asking me to do rhymes and stuff. It's just cool. I mean, he's only 3, so he doesn't know anything. I can't wait for him to like hopefully pick up guitar and not drums.
Don't be like your uncle.
Don't be like your uncle. Although chicks love drummers, so
No, they
it
don't.
might be. They don't. No, they love the bass player that sings.
Yeah.
Like half the time.
Yeah, totally. Definitely the bass player who sings. That's
The
that worked
bass
out
player.
great for me. That worked. I fucked myself so bad by having a girlfriend for the entire time I was in a band, and I was such a dedicated boyfriend. I was like,
Boyfriend,
what the fuck?
you were.
I was an idiot.
What were you thinking? I know these dudes that are like, getting famous. They're like on tour. Like,
I know. I was like fucking. I'm like, yeah, I'm 19. This will last forever. I'll probably break up with her at one point. It's like, oh, 21 and band's done. Okay.
exactly. But you used to be in a band. Then you're the guy like me, like playing, Chris Barker songs on your fucking acoustic guitar, like
To his wife.
to his future wife. Like that could be you.
Dude, I never had the balls to like pull a guitar out and just be like, hey, you want to hear some songs? I could never do that. I just, even when I was married, she'd be like, can you play songs? I'm like, I feel weird. I don't know. It's not like my jam.
But that's why you're cool. That's why guys like you and like Anthony from Armor for Sleep, yeah, like you guys are cool because you like don't do that shit. I was the guy who was like, yeah, let's play, like It's a trait of mine that I'm sure is good in some ways, and does things like help you build a decent sized law firm and stuff like that. But in other ways, makes you quite obnoxious.
You're like, you have like new clients. You're like, hey guys, do you want to hear a song? It's a Brian Fallon cover.
I know you're kind of on like the edge of hiring me or not, but let me throw this in there.
Let me serenade you right now.
Let me serenade you right now.
All right, so let me take this back. I usually structure this as what got you in the scene, and with your case, it was being in a band and talk about the band and stuff. And even though you guys had a very short amount of time, like, and I'm guessing there's not a lot of crazy stuff, but I also want to talk about how we met, which was just funny, or just like this random thing. That's how we met you guys. But yeah, so how did you get involved? And you were like 13. Right?
Dude, we were young. So we started our band, like me, Kellen, who's my brother, who's the drummer, and then Pat Merrick, who lived 4 houses down from me, picked up the bass guitar. Like, dude, we started our band. We played in a talent show, or I don't even know if it was called a talent show or what it was, just some performance. When we were in like 5th grade, we covered Welcome to Paradise by Green Day at like the school recital or something. 5th grade, dude, that's crazy. Kellen was in 6th grade. We were in 5th grade. Pat and I were in 5th grade. And like, dude, 93, when did Dookie come out by Green Day? Was that 93 or 94?
Yeah, like right around then.
It was like, that was it. It was life changing. So we were like 10 years old and we were like, holy shit, I got to do that.
Why did you like that though? Do you remember at 10 years old, like why you gravitated to that sound?
I don't know. I think, Billy Joe Armstrong obviously is this, pretty dynamic dude. And obviously those guys' songs, like if you listen back to that stuff, that was pretty good shit. And then even before that, Kerplunk and 39 Smoothed Out Sloppy Hours, like that stuff was good music. I mean, Billy, obviously they've lasted the test of time. I mean, those guys are, especially Billy Joe, I think is a great songwriter. I don't know why. We just kind of like gravitated towards it. And then my parents, who always kind of supported whatever we did, was like, you guys want to be in a band? That's cool. You're like 11 years old. Go shovel driveways so you can raise money to buy guitars. So like we did that stuff. And then we like just kind of created our own little band, and then the Drop Zone was formed probably a year or so later, and we just started writing music the best we could and came up with these pretty cool songs. And then we started performing live, and we probably met, I was like 13 or 14. I mean, I think Congress of Cow, we played a show at, what was that guy's name? Dave. He had that music store. Remember Dave?
Hippie Dave.
Dave. He was like a sick guitar player, like sick.
They're always a sick guitar player when they're a hippie and they own a guitar
store. Yeah. Dave was like, who I ran into later in life, was, kind of an awkward dude, but like taught me a little bit of guitar because I'd take lessons at his store. And he had like a little concert in the back of the store. Like it was on Route 15, wherever that was in Jefferson. We opened up, and then Congress of Cow, I just remember like seeing a flyer. You guys were handing out flyers for another show. And it was like, dude, I just got to be part of it. We got to be part of the scene.
Yeah, it was at the Pavilion off of 15 and Music Den. I think that was the name. I think it was a Music Den or something. And we used to go in there all the time because it was me and Chris, and we used to be in this band prior to Congress Account. This guy, Joe Antonucci, used to steal like so much shit from that guy.
Sure.
I think everyone did. I felt so bad. The guy was really nice, and everyone used to steal all of his shit. But then he did that concert, so we played it. It was like outside on a Saturday, I think, at like 2:00 and on this concrete. And then you guys opened up. And I remember you guys opened to me. I remember me and Chris being like, this is the coolest shit ever. These kids are like 5 years old and they're playing punk rock right now.
And we didn't give a shit either. Like there'd be like nobody in the audience and I'd be like jumping off an amp.
Yeah.
It was dope, man. It was fun.
Yeah, I remember that because at the end, when we were done playing, you guys came up. You're like, "Oh my god, that was so cool!" Like, we want to like play shows. You were like, "Wow, okay, awesome." And then I don't know if we played any shows as Congress Cow with you guys, or if it was just like
I think there was like one or two that we do, like the Vernon VFW or something. There was like a couple shows that we played together, but it was that scene. It was like Humble Beginnings, right? You guys. Who else was playing? Who was the band? They might have had a horn set.
Right Turnetti?
Yeah, Right Turnetti. And who was the guy? There was also a dude from Jefferson. He had like a big dude, like kind of a heavy dude. He had like a little like ponytail thing on the top of his head. Like he was.
I have no idea. Was he in a band?
Yeah, I forget the name of the band, dude. They did like a lot of cover stuff. They did like Diesel Boy covers and stuff, and it was.
Talking to Lois.
And I was just like into the scene. I thought it was just cool as shit. Like the idea of people like doing an EP, selling their little merch at the table. Like I just love that shit. And it was like, we wanted to be part of it. We were part of it. And we kind of, did a decent job of, writing good enough songs and having fun when we played, where we were part of it to a certain extent. And I think then later we had, so Pat was in the band, and then Steve Arugio joined. And I think that's really where, like, I don't know if you know Steve. I think he did some other stuff after us, but like Steve was a guitar player and a songwriter. He, I think, kind of took us to the next level. We brought in like the second guitar. We weren't just a three-piece. I was a very serious hockey player, and then we, high school happened, life happened.
The end.
The end. And
well,
that's it. That's
thanks everyone for listening to the episode.
So thanks everyone for listening. You got to hear me suck on a mint for the first 10 minutes, and now it's over.
When you guys did your demo, like, where'd you record that?
Yeah, so we did like obviously an original demo like in our basement, like everybody, and then later we did an EP and we recorded it at, it was actually a pretty good studio. It was some dude that we had met through the scene kind of connected us with another guy, and then we raised some money and we put together this little EP, and then we got it. You guys went through the same thing, right? It's like we had somebody in my dad's office who was in like his graphics department, did the cover just because he thought it was cool that we were doing it and wanted to help us. That was called the Quinn EP. It was like that song Quinn, about a girl named Quinn Counselor who I was, in love with when I was 12 years old, and she was like 17.
Oh wow, she's an older woman, huh?
Dude, older woman. And we actually, so when we were in 8th grade, the Sparta High School had a Battle of the Bands. We performed the Battle of the Bands, and they let us in kind of as like this, like, you guys are like this 8th graders or whatever. Nobody really knew us. But by that time, we'd been playing a lot. We'd been out there with, for you guys and whoever else. We'd been on the scene for a little bit.
You're seasoned at that point.
We're seasoned. We came in and we won that thing.
No shit, really?
We won the Battle of the Bands at Sparta High School. We weren't even in high school yet.
That's a story. Holy shit.
Right? It was kind of cool. Like, nobody thought, but it was like people went friggin' nuts, dude. Because again, we were like these little kids that were just like playing this original music that was like very pop punk intense kind of thing. And people were like, wow, this is pretty friggin' cool, man. So I got that going for me.
Did that chick ever like find out that it was about her?
Yeah, of course. It was. I told her it was about her then. And I was in the same grade as her sister, Samantha. So it was like my first girlfriend. But then I met her sister, Quinn. And then I had to write the song.
Wait, you were dating a girl and you wrote it about her sister?
So I was dating her when I was in like 3rd grade. She was like my first girlfriend in 3rd grade.
Oh, okay.
And then like later on in life, when I was all of, 12 or 13, I met her sister and was like, holy shit, I got to write this song. So yeah, I wrote it.
We're talking about that age, how 5 years now is nothing, but 5 years then is like a lifetime.
It's everything, dude.
Yeah, like a 13-year-old thinking they have a shot with a 17-year-old. It's like cool. Like from a guy standpoint, you're like, this is so cool. But like, if it actually worked out, it's kind of gross.
It is kind of exactly like it could never happen, right?
Like nowadays, that's like that's like jail time, or like it's like a stain on your record,
But it never happened. I just wrote the song, I never, it never happened. It just,
What's Quinn's full name?
I mean, it was about, I dated Quinn. I don't know what she goes by now, but.
No, what was her full name back then?
Back in the day, Quinn Counselor and Samantha Counselor. Yeah.
I'm just like, as soon as you said that, I was like, remember when I was in high school and I had this crush on this girl named Danielle Piotrowski. And like, you never forget the full names of people. Nowadays, I couldn't even tell you everyone's fucking last name. Like, I don't even give a shit anymore.
Oh, totally. But back in the day, you knew. And you remember phone numbers. You remember, because you had to dial that shit in, right? It wasn't saved anywhere. You called the house and you had to ask for it, ask for a conversation. I don't know. It's just, these are all the most developmental years of your life. You're young and you think about it too. Like, sometimes I like almost miss those days where like you're writing songs and you're like so heartbroken and obsessed or whatever it was about like individuals you're writing these songs about. Now it's like, I'm tired, like whatever, I'm changing diapers and shit. It's just different.
I was listening to like one of your songs. I was just like listening to the lyrics of this song. What song is this? I think it's Helping Hand. Yeah, it's Helping Hand.
Oh yeah.
And it's like just this kid just pouring his heart out. I'm like, it's so funny that we were just like, yeah, this is real. And you're like, I mean, it is for you at that time, but it's so funny as an adult to look back.
Yeah, as an adult, you're like, kid, you have no idea. You think life's hard now.
Well, it's like, imagine your son when he's 13 and he's like writing shit like this. It's like inside, probably as a parent, you're like, yeah, really supportive. And inside, you're like, get the fuck out of here. Like,
yeah, like, get a job.
You don't know pain, bitch.
Exactly. You want to know about pain?
So when you guys like recorded this, and what did you put it on? Just like it was just on a demo tape?
Yeah, no, well, we got CDs printed or whatever. I don't know I forget how you did that. The Quinn EP was like a 6-song thing, and we like financed it, with $1,000 or whatever,
$1,000? Get the
or
fuck out of
whatever.
here.
I don't know what it cost, but it like wasn't much. I mean, we paid our parents like didn't pay for shit, so it wasn't like we did it. I mean, but Pat Kellen and I had a little business with Pat. We'd like mow lawns and stuff. We did okay. Like, I worked at a place called Casa Mia from the time I was like 12 years old, which is completely illegal now, but like my mom dropped me off there when I was 12 and was like, go wash dishes. And like, that's what we did. It wasn't like, we weren't like the young kids who like, oh, we had people were giving us stuff or buying us shit. Like we just did it ourselves. Our parents were like, listen, we'll support you in this effort. Even though I think, when I look back, like my father and stuff, he probably was like, what the fuck? We're showing up at like, we're 13 years old, you're at these shows with like 20-year-olds with like mohawks and shit, but they supported it. They were like, listen, if you guys want to, do this and you want to, go ahead, but you're going to pay for it yourself and you're going to be real about it. So we did it and we just had a lot of fun, man. I mean, I can't like really get the timeline because I'm just trying to think, but like kind of our last iteration of the band, it was like we were opening up for like the E.R.I.Es, who at the time were like pretty big guys,
Wow, really?
Yeah, had just had some really good shows and
What was like a show you guys played where, I don't know, just the crowd just, you were like, oh my God, this is
it was actually we played with you guys. We played with you when it was Lanemeyer actually. We were opening up for you guys, and it was just one of those VFW shows where like the crowd was just really packed in. It was like you could tell there was like this amazing energy, and it was one of the first times we brought Steve Arugio. Steve Arugio had joined the band. I think it was one of the first times we played with them. And I remember somebody in your band or one of the other bands was like, "Dude, you guys have just taken this to the next level," because we had started to like really explore like different guitar riffs and things like that. It wasn't just so like straight up 3-chord, 4-chord pop punk. It was more like it just got better. Like we're just getting better. We're getting older. And like I remember that show and we opened up and like the crowd just like exploded right away. And it was like everyone was on top of each other. One of those shows where like it was so cool because like you weren't playing on a stage. You were playing literally on the floor. And everybody was right there. So like people are bumping into your mic and it's like jamming into your face, but it's like insanely awesome, right? It's like
Yeah.
everyone's just moving up. And so we had like a great set, it was like, 25, 30-minute set. And then you guys, there might've been somebody in between, but then you guys came on and I just remember, and you opened up with that song. What was the song I sang to the girls?
Oh, another Lonely Winter.
You opened up with that. And it fucking like, and then busted into whatever, one of the other songs that was much more intense. And it was just insane. Like everyone just went crazy. That was one thing I do remember. Yeah, it was sick.
Real quick, if you're looking for an explainer video or someone to do motion graphics for your company, check out my company, drive80.com. And you can email me at mike@drive80.com for more info. That's all I got to say. So now back to the interview. How many years were you guys a band?
So, I mean, we played together from the time we were like, so let me think, like we played our first thing in 5th grade, so which is insane to think because we were so young. But like, yeah, I mean, we stopped playing when I was in like 10th grade.
Like you didn't even get out of high school playing in a band. Like you literally
I didn't finish high school playing in a band. I wasn't in a band when I finished high school.
Did that like work in your? I guess sounds such a bro thing, but did that like work in your favor with like talking to girls back then? Which sounds so gross to ask when you're like, oh, you're like 13, 15 years old. Like, how was your dating life?
But it wasn't like, it's like you said. Like I remember like being in a band and being like, listen, we were young and like it wasn't like, hey, dude, like we're gonna get chicks if we're in a band. It was like, I'm in love with this girl and I want to marry her.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna write songs about her. It's not like. We weren't like David Lee Roth,
That's so true, man. Like that really was the mentality. I remember being that young and thinking like these guys around me are just such dicks. Like I just want to find a girl and just like love her,
and just be in love, and like
yeah. And it's stupid because like not stupid. Like I find myself like that now as an adult. Like it happened to like a couple times and then it didn't work out. And I'm like I'm still kind of like that 13, 14-year-old me is still like got hope as a 43-year-old.
You're right. You're still listening to like Catch-22. Catch-22 had some great music too. I don't know if they were like really in our scene, but we played a couple shows with them before they became like, because they kind of switched and like I think they became pretty hardcore at some point.
They were still just ska, but then the guy left and did Streetlight Manifesto.
Okay, because they had like that like Keys Be Nights, I think it was called, album.
I've never really listened to Catch-22.
Dude, it was sick. But again, it was like all this shit about like, seeing a girl in the hallway and like avoiding her because you're nervous to talk to her and she's dating some other guy. Like it was like, we played like punky kind of music, but it was kind of like not the most like tough ass shit, right? It was like, I'm sad and like I miss you. Like.
What was the show? Do you remember where the show was at that we played with you guys? Probably a
Yeah, the
hard thing to remember.
VFW one. It was some Sussex County VFW. Some of those good. I think there was a band called like, was it Foiled or something, or
Folly?
Folly. Yeah, like Folly had kind of come on the scene. Like, you gotta remember, like we started like way before those bands. By the time they started, like we had already like 3 or 4 or 5, whatever, how many years into it. They came on really hot and was amazing because it was so much energy and it was kind of like almost a different thing. Because like when we got going, it was like we were like a pop punk band, like Green Day. It was like 3-piece, like very simple. Like these guys came in and it was like really intense. Throw like a trumpet player in. It's like crazy, right?
Well, it also kind of worked against you guys because you were so young the entire existence of the band, and when these other bands are coming in, they're in their late teens, early 20s, so they're ready to just keep it going, and you're kind of like, we're kind of stuck in school for the next like 3 years or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, it was true. And I think like also like, and it sounds weird saying it because we were so, still so very young, but like I wasn't over like the Econoline van thing, but it was like, how do we make this more commercial? What do you do to like kind of get to the next stage? And I think ultimately that hurt us, my thinking like that, because I think it, like we had some like really good, like especially like Steve Ruggiero was a really good songwriter. For some reason I was young and just like, well, I'm the songwriter, and like I think about that and it's funny because I think about it like even in my business now about how like pride or like ego or holding on to something like that can ultimately be detrimental, because I actually think Steve Ruggiero is actually a much better songwriter than me now that I look back at it. And I was like, why did I shut that down? Because what, I wanted to be the songwriter? Like that's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, there's such an ego even in musicians throughout their life, unless they become self-aware. They're always gonna, there's such a, because it's something you're creating, so you get really possessive about it.
Right. It's like, well, no, I write the song or I sing it or whatever. And like, and also ultimately, like, so Pat left the band at a certain point. I think it was like when we were in high school. So we stopped, let's say in 10th grade or something. Pat had left the band in like freshman year and we brought in a kid named Gary Bender.
Oh my God, Gary Bender. That's how I was like, Chris had said something. There was this connection. It was years ago. He was telling me about like, he's like, oh, remember Chris from Drop Zone? And he was like doing something. And I'm like, it must have been when you said that you knew Jamie, but then Gary Bender played in Day at the Fair later
Okay,
on.
got it. Yeah. Yeah. So Gary actually was in our band for like a year. This was the end of the band. But Gary, another example of like, I think Gary was a better songwriter than me. He had come in to kind of take over Pat's spot, and then it was like I wasn't that into like sharing songwriting. In retrospect, you look back at stuff and you're like, yeah, I probably should have, because Gary wrote really good songs. Like maybe it would have just been better for our band. Like we would have been able to attract more people and people would have been into it more. But like if you can learn from these things, right? And you look back and you say like, man, don't make that mistake again, no matter what thing you're doing, whether it's business or family or whatever. So I'm sure, I learned something.
People will like say to me like, hey, is it weird to you that Brian from Gaslight's so popular? I'm like, no. It's like he didn't become that until years later. Like he wrote a song with us and we did a cover of something somebody to shove by Soul Asylum, and like those were his two contributions. And I look back at it like there's not one point where I'm like, oh, I should have given the reins over to him because it didn't match what we were doing. And then like years later he writes like 59 Sound and stuff. I was like, he wasn't gonna write that shit in our band. Like he wasn't
No, but then that
presenting
wasn't your
that.
band. I mean, that wasn't Leanmeyer. That wasn't, I mean, Brian's thing is not,
Brian's thing is
what we were
Brian's thing.
doing.
Like
It's his thing, dude. It's not what we were doing at all.
yeah.
I mean, it's even, I find it interesting, like when somebody had said that to me, that like, oh, did you know Brian Fallon and ended up taking over Chris? Like, I didn't even know. I was like, wow, that's an interesting thing.
Like he wasn't Brian Fallon then. He was Brian, the guy in Surrogate McKenzie, and you're like, what fucking band is that?
Exactly. And listen, he's done amazingly well for himself, and he's a really good songwriter. But it's not like he would have written those songs in Leanmeyer, right?
Oh, totally.
Like,
yeah, we wouldn't have let him. I was like, all
yeah,
right,
exactly.
there,
No,
buddy.
hell no. You're not writing that song.
Your voice is too raspy. This doesn't work for us.
We're not Bruce Springsteen. Okay, yeah, I actually just saw him in concert. I saw his. I don't go to like a ton of concerts anymore, but I went and I saw him in his solo project, which was good. And then I saw his Gaslight just played at PNC, and it was a good show. It was
Wow.
pretty
Did
good.
they sell out PNC?
Yeah, I think it was pretty full. I mean, it was,
Were they,
yeah,
were they the headliners?
they were headliners. Yeah, it was his
Jesus
show.
Christ, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. People are into it, and his music's good, dude. I mean, like he sold out. What's the theater in Red Bank? Count Basie. I mean, his solo, that place was full for him.
Wow.
That
Yeah,
place was full.
he plays like Garwood sometimes too. Did you ever go to there? Crossroads?
Yeah, I live right by there, but I've never actually been.
It's a cool venue.
Yeah.
It's small. It's like maybe 200 people can fit in there. It's super. Yeah, like he'll pop up sometimes and play, or like Quicksand just played there recently,
Okay.
which is
Yeah,
fucking weird.
he does. Yeah, it is weird.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like he's like the guy that's the biggest into being a rock star. I think he just wants to write his songs, and I don't know him personally, so I can't really speak to it. But there's guys that you look at and you're like, they love this shit. And there's people you look at and they're like, well, they just happen to be this.
I don't know. I think if people just focus on the crafts and they get really good at it, then all the other stuff happens. But they just like, well, I just want to keep doing this the rest of my life. And I think when someone's like, well, I want the fame, that's when they start having problems, like personal problems, because then like the art goes away and you're like, oh, the fame really is not that cool.
Yeah, it sucks,
I
right?
can't go anywhere. This sucks and I'm freaking out.
Yeah, I think the people that really do stay true to themselves and just play good music end up being the best. But yeah, no, and I saw I think I went to a show like maybe 5 years ago. I saw Blink 182 with their the new guitar guy. Tom DeLonge
Scuba.
was in the band.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Scuba.
it was actually really good. I actually thought they were even better than the original band. I think they were just a little bit tighter.
Yeah, that was like a thing that was surprising to me how well it worked when they got Matt. Matt's the singer of Alkaline Trio.
Yeah,
Yeah, so like when that happened, I was like, I think this like Mark Hoppus is really smart, and I think he probably saw that like, okay, this band is huge and not as big as us, but this is going to give us some credibility, and he can write good songs. This might work, and I was like, wow, it really did.
it like really worked. Like and I was more like I wasn't like the biggest Blink 182 guy. I thought they were really good, but I was not as into them. But the later on, I think their stuff was just really good. I mean, they're obviously insanely talented, and obviously Travis Barker just takes them to the next level, right? When he came in, and
I mean, that's when the band fucking became like. I mean, they were good in the beginning, but when they got him, it
yeah,
was like,
Dude Ranch was good, but it was like it wasn't. What is that? Enemy of the State or Enema
yeah,
of the
Enemy of the
State?
State, yeah.
That record was fucking good, man. I remember being in like eighth grade and being like, I had a Walkman, like whatever, like a little Discman or whatever it was called, and like being on the bus and just listening to this shit and being like, wow, this is good.
Yeah, that first song was so great. Just
Dude, so good.
did you like do so when you guys broke up? Was it just like, hey, okay, let's not do this, or was that like when Gary was in the band?
Yeah, it was. I think it was just kind of like, hey, listen, we got things. You know how this works when you're a kid? It's like, hey, guys, I'm a little bit busy. I got, hockey practice all week. And then it's like, before you know it, you haven't gotten together in 3 weeks. And it's like, maybe we just, Gary started doing other things. He was like writing his own stuff. And I think he actually played for a while. I don't know if he was, like you said, he was in that other band and then writing. So I don't know what he's doing now, but he was a talented kid, man. He did some good stuff.
I think he lives in Florida. He's like this super jacked dude.
Really?
Yes, I forget how I saw his Instagram, but he's like huge. Wow, he's got 90. It's so weird talking about someone when they have no clue that this is probably even going to be on the ether. But it's like we're not dissing him or anything. But he's got 9,841 followers.
Wow.
And what is he doing? Yeah, he's still writing music. Oh, he's in California. Not
No,
Florida.
listen, Gary was very talented. I thought he wrote good songs. And again, it was at the end of our thing. It was just kind of like, and then, I think everyone was kind of doing their, own thing. I don't know. I think at that point, like by that point, Humble Beginnings wasn't a thing anymore. And I think Midtown was a thing. Everyone kind of just was pursuing their own stuff.
Did you guys
But
did you keep going to shows?
I really didn't do that. See, this is the problem, man. People always ask me now, they're like, "No, why don't you and like your brother like start a band or so? Just like play." People like I see these guys like doing covers like in a bar, and I'm like, because the problem with me, and this is my brother's issue too, and it's really good for us in certain aspects of our life as it relates to, business or whatever. But like, if I do something, I want to really do it. I'm not that into really just like playing around. So like I'd be like, like have some cover band that needed to practice 4 times a week, and like I just don't have time for it. But for years, I used to go like there'd be a band up playing in Sparta, and like I'd go up and play a song with them always, sing a song, play a song, like, and that was always fun, especially because people like don't know that that was even part of my life.
Would it be like Crows or something?
Yeah, Crows or Mohawk House or whatever. It was like, the cover band was playing. They'd be like, yeah, we're gonna do American Girl, Chris Murphy, come up here. And I'd like, sing and play the guitar, and like people were like, holy shit, you actually play guitar? It's crazy.
I thought Barker said that you did something after high school that was like something. What am I trying to say? What did you do after high school?
Well, dude, so I ended up being a pretty serious hockey player, and I actually finished high school in Canada. And yeah, I finished high school in Canada. I went to D1 college and I signed pro and I played in the minor leagues for a couple years. And also, dude, I have this crazy life, right? Like that's why the music stuff is just like, if I break out a guitar and people are like, holy shit, you play music. Like I don't even get into the fact that I was in a band and we had CDs and like we toured up and down the East Coast. Like I don't even get into that because like people are like, it can't be real because I did that. We were in high school. We played hockey very seriously. My father was a boxer, so boxing was always part of my life. And then when I stopped playing hockey, I stopped playing minor league hockey at 22. I came back and I was my dad said, if you're going to stop playing hockey, come back, go to the boxing gym, stay in shape, and go to college. So I did that. I ended up with 45 amateur fights as a boxer, and then I turned professional boxing.
What?
And then so I was undefeated as a boxer with 4 fights, and I got hurt this pretty serious cornea injury on my left eye, and the doctor was like, kid, listen, if you want to, if you were to keep doing this or if you were about to fight for a world championship, I'd say go ahead and do it. Like you have 4 fights, dude. You got like 5 more years before you make any money. Go get your education. Don't get your brains beat in. So that's what I did. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me because I didn't get my brains beat in. I still can talk and, I'm relatively functional. But like, so I don't even like, it's so funny. Like that's why this is such an interesting conversation about the band because like people that are like very close to me, like Mike, I'm talking like close to me, don't even know this shit. Like they don't even know I was in a band.
You just never talk about it? I mean, I guess like you don't really talk about like, oh, this is what I did when I was in 10th up to 10th grade, I guess.
Right. It's like, oh, I'm in 10th grade. Like but we'll come up in conversation where people will be like, man, you had an interesting life or whatever. And I was like, yeah, well, I was also in a band or like something like that. But like it never comes up. I've had girlfriends that I've had for like a year that don't even know I was in a band. Like because
being a boxer and a hockey player is way cooler.
I don't know if it is though, dude. I think it's cooler to be in a band. I think it's cooler to be in a band. If my son's gonna do something, I'd say, learn music. It's just a cool thing, man.
Don't get your head beat in.
Yeah, don't get your head beat in. Just break your own heart by writing songs.
And then cover your buddy's songs to his future wife eventually. And
well, listen, it was worth a shot. It was a great song. It was a great song. There was plenty of people in the room, but I'm sure Chris Barker's covered my songs.
I'm sure.
He covered Quinn.
I'm pretty sure he's probably covering Skankin' right now.
He's probably covering Skankin' right now, or like, man.
I just saw that title and I was like,
dude,
Skankin', what a sign of the times.
I don't know if any kid today would even know what Skankin' is, but like we skank, baby. Listen, our stuff later that like never got released, I thought we were young and, kind of corny. The stuff we did later that like we had done some demos and we were kind of shopping some stuff around was like actually got pretty good because like, when you get older, it was like, listen, you listen to those records like Quinn EP or like Pint Sized Punks, which was like our full length thing. We were literally kids, dude. I hadn't gone through puberty yet. My voice was high. Like, we were literally kids. It's like crazy to think about.
Wait, so you recorded a full length or an EP?
Yeah, so we had a 14-song album called Pint Sized Punks. And what happened was, we were playing a show and we got approached by somebody, I forget her name, but she was like, I'm at this record company I think it was called Grunt Shop Records. We want to sign you guys. We want to do an album. And we're like, wow, this is pretty amazing. We went to their offices in New York City. It was really great. It was small, but it was like really nice. She was like in the industry. So she like knew a lot of the people out in California. She knew Travis Barker when he was I think they were called the Aquatic or Aquabats or something. Yeah. And then like, before he even joined Blink-182. And so they signed us. They paid for us to record an album that we recorded in Jersey City on Patterson Plank Road. I forget what the studio was called, but it was like a legit studio. We recorded a 14-song album. We got it all done. Literally everything was done. The guy that was like the owner of the company that I didn't even, we were kids. One day I think I called the woman who was like our person, and like the lines were disconnected. She reaches out to me like a week later, or my parents or somebody, and she's like, "Listen, this is crazy, but like this guy that started this record company was a fraud. He took people's money, not ours, but was running some scheme. But we had access and we had the rights to like our record, so we actually just released it ourselves. Yeah, but somebody else paid for the recording and everything, which is great. But it was this 14-song album. It was pretty good. Like, we were still really young, and Pint Sized Punks was like the perfect name because we were little pint-sized dudes. We were like so young, but Steve Arugio had been in the band by that time, and like we were pretty good. And then we went through puberty and recorded a couple other things and sounded more like men. But by that time we were had other interests. But it was yeah.
Wait, so your parents would just drive you to Jersey City multiple days in a row to record and just leave you?
Yeah. This was like pre-Uber and all that shit. So we didn't have licenses. So they were like, I think we recorded it over like 4 or 5 days. And, they, would drive us in. Patterson Plank Road at the time, I don't even know what it looks like now. It's probably, sky rises that your rent is, $5,000 a month. But at the time it was like pretty rough. We'd go in the studio and like Anthrax had just recorded their album there. So it was like a real studio. It was like real technicians and stuff.
What the fuck? I gotta look this up. Big Blue Mini.
Yeah, Big Blue Mini. Where did you guys record your stuff?
We went to Portrait for the first EP, and then we went to Nada for the full length.
And then there was also a dude up in Newburgh, New York. He was in a band, actually.
Yeah, that's Nada. That's John from Lounge.
Yeah, John from Lounge. Yeah. So John recorded. We did an EP, like a demo EP. It was like 4 songs. After Pint Sized Punks, we had kind of grown up a little bit. I totally forgot about this. Holy shit! And John recorded it for us. It was really good, and he that was kind of like the last thing we ever recorded. And we had gotten, I think, just better, as a band by that time. I think like if we had either kept going or had started our band kind of at that point, maybe things would have been a little bit different. But we were like burnt out musicians by the time we were like 16. I was burnt, man. I was done.
Your hard life. You got parents driving you everywhere, people paying for your albums. Fucking dick.
Parents driving us to shows, like helping us load up the van. Yeah, it was just different, dude. It was different. And we were just admiring all you guys. We're like, how cool those guys look. You guys were cool.
Yeah, you're lucky, man. I mean, it was fun to like go on the road and tour and stuff. But you said you did tour. You just said that briefly.
Yeah, so we did. So when we did, and this is another thing that gets into like, just like the business. I actually, it's interesting because as much as, and I love being in a band, I actually like the business part of being in a band, which is like an interesting thing. Like I liked booking shows. I liked, coming up with, kind of the more businessy aspects. So I booked a tour, like this little tour we did after we released the Quinn EP, or maybe it was Pint Sized Punks. Maybe it was Pint Sized Punks. We did a tour. My parents, God bless them, dude. I mean, like my dad and Pat's dad, we got in a fucking van. We loaded the shit up in the back, and we played like 5 shows. We played like somewhere in Richmond. We played somewhere we played in Atlanta, Georgia. We played 2 shows in Florida. It was like a week-long thing, but it was a trip, man.
Did you book that?
Yeah. And because back in the day, dude, you used to have what was the magazine they had out of the East Bay that was like
Book Your Own Fucking Life?
Yeah, like Book Your Own Fucking Life or something. It wasn't like today. Like we didn't have the internet like we have today where you could just go on and find this stuff. Like you would look and you would find like somebody that does shows in Atlanta, and like you would reach out to them and be like, hey, we're coming down this date. Is there anything available? And like we booked it. And we like by that time though, like we had been like we were on, I forget which one it is. I think we're on like one of like the Fat Records like comps.
What?
At that point, yeah, like we had gotten on one of those because I had sent a one of our albums to Fat Mike and No Effects.
What?
And you got to remember, dude, like we were such a novelty because we were so young that like I think we got a lot of opportunities that other people might not get. Right? If you guys are sending a record to Fat Mike, he's like, all right, dude, just another like band that's our age that is doing the same stuff. It's good, but they were getting this record and it was like a bunch of 13, 14-year-olds and they're like, holy shit, this is cool. And they, put it on. I gotta find out which one
I'm
it is.
like looking this up right now. There's,
Let me see.
I could put Drop Zone on Fat Wreck Comp. Fat Music Volume 1, Volume 4, Life in the Fat Lane.
No, it definitely wasn't that.
That's crazy that you guys were on a fucking.
Yes, we got on this shit, dude. It was like crazy to think about how we were able to do that stuff. And I remember hearing from them. Like I'd get calls from like people at like Lookout Records. Hey, dude, we got your thing. Like we can't do anything now, but like so supportive of you. Like let us know if you're ever out here. Like it was kind of cool. They were calling my home line, dude. Like I had a home, my own like little home line in my room. Like people, I get home and there'd be like a little message blinking. And be like,
Jesus Christ, man. This is wild. I was not expecting to hear that. Let's see, Drop Zone. Let's see if I can find you guys. I'm on Discogs right now. Yeah, I don't know. There's like a Wikipedia about list of fat comps. There's
oh, is there? Yeah, they had the best stuff.
Well, what year was this like when you did this?
I mean, it must have been like if I was 14 years old, it would have been like 80. It would have been like 90, like 99, 97, 98.
So
I mean,
there's Life in the Fat Lane, Short Music for Short People, Live Fat, Die Young.
yeah. So if you look at like Discogs, what is Discogs?
Discogs.
If you go to that, you'll see like the album cover. Like, do you see that? Are you on Discogs? If you type on Drop Zone, Pint Size Punk, this is pretty cool, dude. It says like exactly where it was recorded and stuff. So it was mastered at Surgical Sound. It was mixed at Big Blue Meanie. Artwork by Steve Arugio. Bass, blah blah blah. Chris Murphy. That's kind of cool.
Oh wow, there it is. Yeah. Holy shit. Oh, I do remember that cover.
Yeah.
I totally remember that. Yeah.
I gotta figure out what the comp was that we were on. The only other thing I could think is that maybe did Kung Fu record? Was there a Kung Fu Records comp?
Yeah, there was Kung Fu. Because Kung Fu was by Joe from the Vandals.
Okay, maybe it was Kung Fu. I forget.
Because I'm saying, like, I think the fat comps you'd have to be on.
Yeah, Fat Records. Yeah, Fat Records. That makes sense. All right, edit that part out.
No, I'll keep it on there. Short Music for Short People, though. Short Music for Short People had bands that weren't on Fat, but I doubt you'd have been on that one.
We were on some comp.
Okay. That wasn't Fat Records.
I definitely heard from the dudes from Fat Records because these guys, because I went and saw Eric from NoFX had another band and invited us to CBGB's to watch him play.
What?
Yeah, he's playing at CBGB's and like this is like now I look back and it's like CBGB's is legendary, but it was a shithole. Like,
it was a total shithole.
It's a shithole. Like, but I remember I went in with my father, and I think at that point he was probably like, "Fuck this." He's like, I'm sitting in CBGB's on like a Thursday night, school night, like, and I'm like listening to Eric, whatever band. Eric had a band that like did covers, I think.
Oh, Me First and the Gimme Gimmes?
Maybe it was Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, but I thought
that's like Fat Mike's band.
That's Fat Mike's band.
Yeah, with Joey from Lagwagon and all that.
Yeah, which was a sick band. Dude, all this stuff I haven't thought about in fucking 20 years.
I was going to say, like, how often do you even think about this time period?
No, I don't think about it at all. This is all like a stream of consciousness.
Well, it's so funny with this, like, with this whole podcast, it's like I'll talk to bands that are still together or they at least went for a while, and then some bands that were just like really a small amount of time. And it's just, I was like, I have to get Drop Zone on there because I remember just playing with you guys, this little tiny band, these young kids that were like, we like your band.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we were so little, man. I'm trying, like, I think about it like now, and I think about like I see kids that are like 12, 13 years old, and like these kids can't even fucking like walk down the street like the right way. And I'm like, dude, we were like playing punk shows like back then. It's cool, man. Like,
oh yeah. I mean, I'll see, it's like my friends' kids or something that they're teenagers. I'm like, they look so goddamn young. And you were talking about Saves the Day before, and I mentioned this earlier in another interview, but it was like he was 16 years old and he wrote these songs that to this day I'm still listening to.
Dude,
just,
to
like,
this day, like Through Being Cool, like those songs, like,
oh yeah,
I'm gonna cut a piece of your leg off to carry it around. Like, what the?
Yeah,
fuck,
let me take this awkward saw and run it against your thigh.
Exactly.
Cut the flesh away.
Your eyes
like,
out.
Yeah, you're like, what the fuck?
Like he came up with this shit. And he's a smart kid too. I think he was like, he went to NYU or something at that time. He was going to NYU and he was just going back and forth from Jersey or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like wrote this amazing music. Like you said, to this day, I could still throw that record in. And wasn't I think Gabe from Midtown was actually in the insert on that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's like on the back making out with this chick on a couch. I remember when I saw that on the back, I was like, fuck that guy. Fuck him so much. He's on Saves the Day CD, one of the greatest things I've had in my possession at that time.
What was it? What was the reason you hated it when Midtown came out? Was because they were just they took off so quickly, or it was
Yeah, it was just
just
like one of those where we were friends with Gabe, and then he was in Humble, and when he got kicked out, we would hang out with him, and then we started Midtown, and it was like I felt like we just lost that friendship, and I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like we were so cool, and then Midtown came out and just blew like way past where we were and put all this time in. I think it was like kind of like we were like, hey man, we put the reps in so far, and you guys just showed up at the gym and you're already like squatting like 300 pounds, like.
right. But sometimes there's like this, like, and I think about that often. There's like this chemistry that comes from something new that I think can generate some great music or some really creative shit. And like, who knows, like what that would have looked like if like me, you, Kellen, and Chris Barker started a band. Who knows? What that could look like.
There's still time.
There's still time.
There's still time.
We're not that old.
It's true, and I just live in North Carolina, so I'll just
Dude,
take
it's virtual. We'll just be like,
we'll just zoom it.
We'll zoom it. It's like the new thing.
Drop Meyer.
Drop Meyer, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, we came up with Drop Zone when I was like fucking 10 years old. Like I don't think that's one thing people are like, what's the name of your band? Like Drop Zone. Like how cool is that?
It's actually still, I think it's a good name. It holds up.
It does hold. I think it does hold. I think we used to have these cool shirts that like Steve Arugio came up with the art, and like they'd have like Drop Zone there and like the circle and like the O and Drop Zone's like a bullseye. Like I don't know, people wore them. I actually saw it was like it was like probably 10 years ago, but that's recent in this world. Somebody like had that shirt. I was like, wow, it's pretty cool, man.
I think there should be a drinking game that someone starts when they listen to this episode of how many times you say the name Steve Arugio.
I know. Well, maybe it's like a guilt thing. I feel bad. He should have. Steve was great. I loved Steve, man.
Do you still talk to him now? Or?
I don't, dude. It's been 20 years, but he was like, at the time he was just a talented dude. Like he was one of these guys that was just good at being a musician. He like was a great guitar player. He wrote good music again, but I, played a part in squashing his creative genius.
Did he play after you guys? Like after you guys?
Yeah, I think he was in another band for a while. Was in some hardcore like band shit, and then people kind of went different directions because like emo wasn't really a thing when we were coming up. Like, or maybe it was, but maybe we weren't in it. But I think that was like right after we got done. It was like more of the emo kind of stuff. Is that really kind of what we were all playing? Was that emo? What would you?
I think you guys were more pop punk.
Yeah.
I mean, emo. When I think of emo, I think of like early Jimmy Eat Worlds, Mineral, Sensefield.
Yeah. I think of Taking Back Sunday.
I see when people say Taking Back Sunday's emo, I just don't agree.
What do you think? Like,
I think they were their own thing. Like I mean, when people say like Yellow Card is emo, I'm like they're not emo. They were, I don't know, just like this. They were just yellow. Emo is exactly what I said. It's like the Minerals, the really slow, like I'm sad, really crazy guitar shit.
Let me ask you. This is a good question. What's My Chemical Romance? What is that?
Again, I think they're just their own shit. They were punk when they started.
Because that's good, dude. I still listen to their music. Like I will jam out to that stuff like hardcore in the car.
The first record I never really got into. The second one, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge.
So good.
Like
so good, dude.
Man.
So good, dude. I'm still like finding new songs on that record that I'm like into now.
Yeah, actually, I bought it on vinyl. I haven't played it in a while. No, I'm thinking of Black Parade. I bought that on vinyl. That record is like flawless, beginning to end. It's crazy.
Are they still a band? Do they still do?
That's the reason that Midtown got back together. They got back to My Chem got back together last year to tour. So they announced this tour, and then they asked Midtown to open up for a bunch of stadium shows. Which
really?
Is crazy. If you go to Midtown's Instagram, there's this one video that someone behind Rob Hitt, who's the drummer, is just scanning the room, and it's everyone in the audience is holding up their phones to this one song, and it's just a billion people. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah, that's cool as shit.
Yeah,
man.
it was like, so they did that because My Chem got back together to tour, and they did do a song. I think when people say like emo music, when We Were Young festival came out and everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna get all emo, I'm like, I just have a different It's like I think like the first wave of emo, maybe that's what I consider, if there is such a thing when people say that. It's like the first like different waves of ska.
Yeah,
There
that's a
was
good point.
traditional, and then there's like the punk ska and like the Less Than Jake
And there's like
style, and
poppy ska, like
yeah,
Mighty Ballstone shit.
I mean it's
Like,
still
yeah,
ska. It's still like the style of guitar and shit and horns,
you
but
can still skank to it, right?
yeah, he's still skank. All the skankers. Well, cool, man. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna start wrapping this up. I've been like pausing lately with this question with some people because I don't know if it like works. It just I don't know. Is there a story that before I ask the last two questions, is there a story you've always wanted to tell that you've never told in an interview and you could tell it now?
No,
You're like, no, I'm a lawyer. I'm not
no,
telling.
dude, I can't say shit. I'm a lawyer. My partners are gonna fire me. I'm not even allowed to have this interview. I'm kidding. No, there's nothing. Listen, dude, we were kids, dude. It's like it's
That's
not
what I was
like
saying. Like, I don't think it could work because it's like, what were you like? Oh, with this one time we went to Taco Bell and
yeah, right. And like got high in the bathroom and like our parents didn't know. Like I guess maybe, but like I said, I was actually just looking at an old Spin magazine. It was like Lee Roth was like on the cover, and I was like, that's a rock star. We were not rock stars.
Well, but some people answer that question with just kind of like a random story about something they love. Like Dave from Kid Dynamite was just on, and his story was like it was just he's like, yeah, I remember playing Uno like aggressively, and it was like nothing like yeah, we were like doing fucking blow off of strippers' asses and
Right,
things like
right,
that.
right.
It was
Oh, you don't want to hear that part. Okay.
yeah,
No, yeah, Uno and cheating. Yeah, I cheated on playing a card game one time and no one knew.
there you
No,
go.
no, I don't. I have nothing for
Okay.
you.
All right, well, you can tell me after I hit stop recording. All right, so two questions. Before that's the last one, what would you like to plug? It could be about you, it could be about a friend, it could be about both.
Oh, interesting. Listen, if there's anybody on this podcast that needs a commercial real estate attorney, I'm your guy. But no, it's no, just the scene, man.
What's the
I
name of your
mean,
company though? What's the name of your law
Murphy
firm?
Schiller and Wilkes,
Okay,
MSW.
there you go.
Newark-based commercial real estate law firm, like 23 people. Yeah, listen, we've done okay, man. And it's been the NJ pop punk crew stuff was a big part of our life, and kind of shaping us into who we are today. And it's just cool, man. It's cool, like you reached out and that we got to talk because, like, literally, dude, I haven't even like thought about this stuff in 20 years. Like, I'm not talking about like 2 years, like 20 years.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about like recording a Big Blue Meanie on Patterson Plank Road in Jersey City. Like, why do I even remember that? It's just crazy.
Last question. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
Yeah, dude, I think it might be weird answer, but like, I think it was that, we saw how hard, everybody had fun, right? So like you guys were having fun, we're all having fun like at these shows, but like I don't think people realize like even in that space where like you have a bunch of kids that are like just having fun, like how hard everyone really worked. Like people worked hard, people practiced, they were dedicated to their craft. Some were better than others, some bands were better than others, some were more successful than others, but like everybody really, I think, cared about being good at what they did. I definitely hold on to that, and that's kind of shaped a lot of who I am. And everybody did care about what they did. I don't think there were too many bands in our scene that were just like total like punks, like total. I don't mean punks like in that way. I mean like just like totally like just jerk offs, and like didn't care. I think most people actually cared about being good and like wanting to create good music. That's all I got.